So it's not the constitution that is a problem per se, but those that are supposed to interpret it and then administer it.
See, what we're saying is that people should be passionate about their job. We should have people that love this country. People say, you know what, we don't want deregulation of petroleum products. We want the subsidy to continue. We want our refineries to be prepared. But you go talk to somebody who runs or works in one of these refineries, they will tell you why those refineries can never work.
There is a present and real danger for the corporate existence of Nigeria. Generally, this government is considered as weak.
It should not be so. If we remain like that, then we will remain in socio-economic and political thraldom.
So when you talk about passion, the people ruling us, they are not passionate.
Well, let's take
the House of Rep is not passionate. The senators are not passionate. That's why they are discussing without doing anything. Which sacrifice are they going to offer?
In Nigeria, governance is not about servanthood. Governance in Nigeria is about what can I get.
All right, you're welcome to another edition of The Agenda. And if you're wondering what we do on The Agenda, we redefine patriotism. We set the agenda of this country, Nigeria, in the right perspective. This is what we do on The Agenda. My name is Philip Haza, and I'm so glad to be with you once again this week. And now, this week, we're going to be looking at a very crucial issue, I must say. Prior to this time, we've been looking at Nigeria's economy. But how can we talk about the economy when we do not talk about security? And that's why we also talked about security in previous episodes. But this week, we're looking at a very crucial topic, and of course I'm not going to be doing that alone. I have two distinguished guests with me, all right? And then to my left, immediate left, I have Mr. Barrister, beg your pardon, Barrister Jonathan Okiegboro. He is a legal practitioner, a national legal advisor of the National Conscience Party, NCP, and public policy analyst. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Good to have you, sir. All right, and then to my far left, I also have Kingsley Omose. He's a legal practitioner, principal partner, Reliance Solicitors, social expert, and public policy analyst. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us. All right, and now this week we're going to be looking at a very crucial issue. The trial of Nigeria's fuel subsidy crimes. Is it a farce or a reality? That's what we want to see. For some time now, the stage has been set. You know, the Attorney General gave us, you know, a heads up, you know, that this trial, in fact, everyone in Nigeria should be prepared, because we're going to work on all the indicted companies, and then we're going to produce some results this time from this probe. But so far, in the past weeks now, some Nigerians have had a reason to doubt that information, if really it's a reality or it's a farce. That's what we're looking at. I'll just quickly run down through a little information, the background of this issue. We hope to actually get to the crux of this matter today. All right, so I want to start with the background. The background, I have some information that says fears are being exercised in some quarters that the trial of firms and individuals allegedly indicted in the fuel subsidy probe will not see any meaningful conclusion. Now, this has been on the lips of Nigerians since the trial began. It is left for the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, the anti-graft agency, and the government to prove to the Nigerians that they really mean the business of fighting corruption. The question then is the ongoing trial of Nigeria's fuel subsidy crime a farce or reality? This is what we need to find out. On Tuesday, the EFCC withdrew all criminal charges against some of the suspects facing trial for the fuel subsidy scam. The EFCC said the charges against, for example, Peter Mba. He's a Pinnacle Oil and Gas, he's the boss of Pinnacle Oil and Gas. And then they also talked about Duroshola Omegbinugun and Integrated Resources Limited. These two people were misconstrued and filed by mistake. That's what the FCC, you know, gave to the populace. Now, the anti-graft agency further disclosed that after a proper review, it was discovered that they were innocent of the charges laid against them. Now, what I want to know is, what do you make out of this? Is there really a basis for this statement? Mr. Kingsley, I'd like to start with you.
Well, I mean, it would depend. From the point of view of the lawyers in the EFCC who are prosecuting, they would want to weigh all the circumstances. And short of, you know, any of these indicted companies or individuals coming forward to admit liability, you would require evidence to prosecute.
Yes.
Now, we don't know whether they are relying on the various reports that have been written by committees. You know, we have the report that was approved by the House of Representatives.
Yeah, the ad hoc
and then the
committee.
presidency also set up a committee
Another
headed by
committee.
Agboje Mokwede, who produced what many regarded as quite brilliant, and
Yeah.
then subsequently sent up a review committee that submitted a final report. We don't know
On verification
whether these
of
prosecutions are based on those reports. So to the extent that we are not aware of what material the EFCC is lying on, we would have to give them the benefit of the doubt for the time being. If, for instance, we had a report, because the report contains a list of indicted companies, the various amounts of monies they are supposed to refund, then one would want to question the basis of why EFCC is discontinuing prosecution of some of the indicted companies or individuals.
Barrister Jonathan, is that your position?
Yeah, my position is that it's very clear. It's aligned with the laws of the land, the Constitution.
Okay.
One, the Attorney General of the Federation has the power under Section 174 of the 99 Constitution of the Federal of Nigeria to discontinue any criminal proceeding at any stage. He has exercised his power under the Constitution.
And for any reason?
And for any reason, yes.
So we wake up in the morning and there is
definitely
a change in the direction of the
definitely. That is the position of the law. And it also went further. It's a discharge and not an acquittal. It therefore means that at any other further time, such persons can still be prosecuted.
Okay.
You get it?
Okay.
That is the position of the law.
Okay.
And it's constitutional, which he has exercised.
So
we are not saying it's a farce or not. It's acting in accordance with the Constitution.
Okay.
So it cannot be blamed. One, the National Assembly, they are empowered under the Constitution, Section 88, to conduct investigation in any of the ministries, departments, parastatals, as the case may be. And Section 89 of the Constitution as well went further to say they have the right to ask for evidences, that is documentary evidence. So, like as my colleague have rightly said, maybe these documentary evidence are not weighty or not credible enough for the FCC to prosecute. That is where they are stopped. Because in the court of law, they depend solely and merely on credible evidence.
So are you saying that the reports submitted by all the instituted bodies that worked on this report, it took them actually a long time and resources to get these reports to indict, like the ad hoc committee report indicted over 71 companies?
Yeah.
You know, are you saying that based on those reports, all of a sudden Nigerians wake up and there is a discharge, as you called it,
yeah,
on the crimes against these indicted companies? Then why were they indicted in the first place? Is there some seriousness in this probe or not? That's what we need to find out.
Yeah, what the 7th National Assembly have done is constitutional. Under Section 62 of the 1999 Constitution, they can set up committee to look into all this, which they have done. So, based on the report, we have been hearing, reading the papers. Atedola do this and do that. So, we cannot say this report
holds water.
That's it.
Mr. Kingsley.
Like as you said, we were not here.
Well, you know, the situation has become very messy.
Yes.
And, you know, people are disturbed about the quantum of the fraud involved, and as it were crying for blood. And the government and the EFCC have a responsibility here to show clearly that they are interested in prosecuting. But the fact is, in the instance of these companies that were discharged, we have not heard the House of Representatives say these companies were part of the companies we indicted, or anybody on the Agboje committee coming forward to say these companies were part of the companies we indicted. And like I said, in the absence of clear proof regarding, you know, the basis on which EFCC is acting, because the impression I get is that EFCC also conducted its own investigations. So it appears that there's a lot more, but because Nigerians are more privy to the report of the House of Representatives, and remember, a lot of what the House of Representatives did was conducted in public, and people heard clearly what had happened. And in the case of Agboje committee, there were excerpts of the committee's report also in the paper. But I would advise that we give the EFCC the benefit of the doubt in this particular instance, and not use that as a yardstick to write off the entire prosecution process. Because if you look at some of the reports, I think it appears there were about 70 or more companies.
Yes.
The issue is, does the EFCC, as it stands or as its present, does it even have the resources to carry out that kind of mass prosecution? What we have seen in Upton times is the reliance on private solicitors, or these are lawyers who are outside government employment, yes, being engaged, and these things come at a very high cost. So again, we would expect that in a situation like that, they want to limit themselves to what they can immediately get some results from, as opposed to just lumping everything together and messing up the situation. Because it would be worse if these people are tried and at the end of the day they are discharged and acquitted, meaning that you cannot subsequently try them for the same offense afterwards.
Okay, for example, let's look at one report. Of course, we will have to look at the report that raised a lot of dust in our country, and all of a sudden it looks like we found a solution to kill the dust. The ad hoc committee report, from Farouk Lawan, and then later on he had an issue to Todela. Let's look at the report. Do you think it's now baseless because he was also indicted in bribery scandal?
We cannot say it's baseless. I cannot say it's realistic, or as the case may be. You see, from what is on ground now, which we are all aware, because I watched the telecast, where Farouk Lawan, who is the chairman of that committee, was telling, telling the House openly to withdraw the indicted companies. Look, see to that. So we cannot 100% say it's baseless. Whether we don't know what is really happening between Otedola and whether that issue, we don't know. For some time now, we have not heard much about it. So until maybe, I don't know, we just don't know what is happening. But all I know is that it's not baseless. But for one thing, I so much like for this Seventh National Assembly is investigation. One, the public is not aware of the magnitude of corruption in high places, particularly in this sector. We are not aware. It's not left for even particularly the NGO and the lawyers and EFCC to actually prosecute where there are weighting evidences. But like this kind of Farouk Lawal and whatever, the evidence is not even there.
All of a sudden, the evidence was actually squashed. Nigerians, our ears were filled with lots of information, and all of a sudden it was squashed, and then it looked like their direction was taken completely to another perspective.
Yes.
What do you think? Do you think the journalism has a part to play in this, or you think it's just a ploy, it's a right plan from the people, the powers that be?
Yeah, the journalism, they have part to play.
What about you, sir? You feel
I think I had issues with the House of Representatives ad hoc committee probe from inception. Much as we like the drive to investigate, if these committees or the House of Representatives is motivated by reasons that are, it's like, you are searching for information with which to do harm, and you're not looking for information with a view to addressing a problem. That's where we have problems or challenges.
Yes.
The fact is, there is a problem in the downstream petroleum sector. If you look at the Nigerian economy, literally every sector that is handled by government, whether at the local government level, at the state level, is experiencing one challenge or the other. For quite a while now, there has been this battle. Do we deregulate or do we maintain the status quo? And in the midst of the agitation, we stumble upon something that is so monumental that even the figures that are being bandied about is just staggering. I mean, if you sit down and you calculate how much government has poured into the subsidy from 1999 to date, you're talking about trillions of naira. And the simple question that the House of Representatives should have asked itself is that this monumental fraud is evidence of a broken system. Because the whole essence of an investigation is not to look for people to catch and feed the drive of the masses for some sacrifice.
Yes.
Which is the impression I get. You get Otedola. Otedola is recognized as President Jonathan's man Friday. It is indicative of maybe the monies were used by Otedola to fund President Jonathan's. And once you are driven by such motives, when you are, a public officer occupying a public office, people will respond. But to the extent that the House of Representatives failed to address the primary issue, which is how do you tackle a system that produces this kind of fraud? Do we maintain the status quo? Do we alter the status quo? And if as a result of the findings that the House of Representatives comes up with, it then says, but these people who profited from this broken system, there's a responsibility to try them and try to recover these monies. One can see, you understand the connection. But when you go for the juggle and you say, let us look for some sensational people to make scapegoats, of course those people are not going to sit down and wait for you to come and make scapegoats of them. And that is the response that we've seen. And in the process, unfortunately, it has affected the integrity of the High Committee report. Yes.
Especially when the people are already ruling in the jungle, if I may use that. Earlier this year, there were said to be cabals. Do you think the Nigerian populace, they're paying for, that protest? You talked about the regulation, and the government made an effort to take out, the subsidy. Do you think Nigerians are paying
I would say again that was a missed opportunity.
Okay.
I was fully in support of the protests. But to the extent that, again, people who had agendas coming in to say, let us use this as an opportunity to overthrow the government, forgetting that the labor union is a labor organization that is there to protect the interests of the working class. Their job is not to rise up in arms against constituted authority.
And even talked about impeachment and all of that.
What was required at that point was for civil society to supply the missing ingredient that labor didn't have, to constitute for them a high-powered body that could engage with government on policy issues, because they have the government by the jugular. Having the government by the jugular is that ability to influence government policy. Because if you are in executive authority, you have these awesome powers. I mean, the Nigerian president, next to the Liberian president, is the most powerful president in the world, based on the powers that are vested in that office. If you have that authority, it takes a lot for a Nigerian president to sit back and say, you know what, let me be influenced by outside opinion or contrary views. Because everybody in the Federal Executive Council owes his or her appointment to the president and holds that position at the absolute discretion of the president. So to expect that in a Federal Executive Council, for instance, where the president would get people who will speak something to the contrary, is quite difficult. The labor and the civil society had government at that point where they could sit down and say, look, we recognize that the system is broken. It's not just a question of removing the subsidy. This is the opportunity we have to address challenges in that sector. But it was completely missed. And people began to talk about, you know what, we could overthrow the government, we could cripple the government, we could do this, we could do that. And of course, by the time the labor people went to the presidency and they were giving evidence of the side discussions that were taking place in the midst of the strike, they realized that the strike was being taken advantage of by people who had ulterior motives. So until people purify their motives and say, let us do what is in the best interest of Nigeria. Crisis moments like these are not bad. they are not bad. They are opportunity to address problems. If you go back into the history of Nigeria, I can reel out for you series of frauds that have taken place of similar magnitude, or probably even of higher magnitude, that were opportunities to address systemic flaws. But do you take advantage? Because it will be a disaster if another few years from now we are talking about another fuel subsidy, because you think that if you remove the PDP and the CPC comes in there because Buhari has a statue of somebody who is known to be non-corrupt. But if he presides over a system that is flawed, the system is flawed.
So it's about the system.
Yes.
Let's go back to our business. Analysts have said that the ball is in the court of Mohammed Bello Adoke to ensure that the substantial justice is brought to bear on these alleged subsidy thieves. Do you see this burden of responsibility being fully harnessed by Mohammed Adoke, considering the personalities involved? Compare his position as Attorney General. Yes, he's also his son. Okay, but then compare that to the personalities involved. We had Bamanga Tukur's son, the current PDP chairman. We had the former, that's Maman Ali, who is a son of the former PDP boss, and all of that. What do you think with this contrast?
Going by, it's only that Nigeria is a kind of funny country. Going by law, if we're to be overseas, respected, where the laws are respected, whether you are from a high caliber, whatever, or whether you supported the president, as far as you have committed a crime or alleged to have committed a crime, let's say alleged for now, I mean, the person stands to be prosecuted. So the issue of Mr. Mohammed Adoke coming in to exercise his power when the law is there and there are evidence. The fact is that, like as my colleague have already said, there are no evidences from this EFCC or from the police.
Okay.
That is the problem. And by so, Adoke will not have any evidence to prosecute. This is just the basis where I know the issue of inability to prosecute will surely come in. Otherwise, Adoke himself, he shouldn't have any fear. He should not even fear the so-called Kaba and all those big Amadou and Lisson, whatever. ACN, they have started talking to them.
Exactly, I was almost...
Get out of this place. And by the time ACN continues it, there will be no room left for the man to get out of that place. So definitely, if Adoke continues to, not to toe with the path of the law, the lawyers will rise against him. I can confidently assure you of that. That you can see the issue of who was the other Attorney General Federation, Aldoka also. Aldoka, thank you. Yeah. You see how he was thrown out. He was his son was taken away and was not asked to. Am I not?
Yeah, he was suspended for 2 years. Suspended,
disgraced out because of the magnitude of if he's going to do something. The NBA, they are watching. As we are talking now, information and the journalists and whatever, everybody's eyes and ears are definitely on ground. So if Adoke is going to perform on the other way around, the law is there. The NBA, they will show him out. We have brilliant NBA that are really in place. You need not to do anything contrary to the law.
What is right? Okay, the ACN and the PDP, they've actually exchanged words recently as related to this issue. The ACN accuses the PDP gravely for the crimes that they have committed, because most of the personalities involved are related to PDP. But do you think they should focus on the specks in their eyes, especially the ACN, which of course the party has its own skeleton in the cupboard to fix?
There's a political side to every issue.
Yes,
as an opposition political party, you would expect the Action Congress of Nigeria to make as much mileage out of the situation. So I do not see what they are doing as out of the ordinary. But what is disturbing is that they are not offering any better solution. Because I read a full-page advert that was taken by Bola Ahmed Tinubu in the heat of the January fuel crisis, and There was nothing tangible in what he was saying. And I would assure you, with all due respect, that if we were under an ACN government, the magnitude of the fraud may not be this high, but you would still have some, because it's a broken system. You don't even know the amount of your consumption. I mean, you drive a car, you don't know the size of your fuel tank. So if the petrol attendant undersells or oversells, you don't know. It is evidence of a broken system. What we need is some intelligent package from the ACN to say, if we were in power, this would be our response, not just to the fraud, but to the problems in the downstream petroleum sector. Because we need to, I mean, in another 10 years, not 10, in another 8 years, we'll be in 2020. Are we going to carry this problem up to 20? We've been carrying this fuel subsidy issue since the 80s.
And that's like 2 tenors from now.
Yes. Are we still going to have this same problem because we don't have what it takes to sit down to address what is in reality a systemic problem, similar to what we used to have in the telecommunication sector? Because nobody remembers that just like NNPC, NITEL was a drain pipe. Anybody who wanted to feast and enjoy life got posted to NITEL as MD. It was one of the subsidiaries that was draining the government resources. But what is the reality today? Today, we are talking about 99, I mean, almost 100 million telephone lines, as opposed to in NITEL era where we had just about 200,000 lines. What happened? What resulted in the what is the, that's over 1,000%.
Of course.
You know, you're not talking about the jobs that have been created. I was reading in the papers the other day that MTN alone in the last 2 years has generated 2.5 billion as profit. In other words, if you add the profit of MTN for 2011 and 2010, it's probably about what we earn from crude oil in 1 year. And that's because some changes were brought into that sector. So people are crying for blood. Yes, try the fraud, subsidy fraudsters. You end up prosecuted. And I'm assuring you, he's here, he's a lawyer. He will tell you they are all going to get senior advocates. I've not even seen any of them now that has gone to employ or engage the services of a lawyer who is not a senior advocate. And you are sending Adoke, who is just one man, probably going up against 5, 6, 7 senior lawyers. What are the resources at his disposal? He's thinking one thought, those guys are thinking 10. And I'm assuring you those cases are going to go all the way to the Supreme Court. So at the end of the day, even if you do succeed in getting the prosecution, by the time, I mean getting the conviction, by the time we get to that level, most people will be moving on to 1 or 2 other issues and the issue will be forgotten. But the problem is still there.
Well, okay, what do you think about the son of Babanga Tuko? What exactly is this issue? Do you think some people are saying that it's just his son is used as a sacrificial lamb because it definitely should be related to him, especially because your son cannot come up all overnight and be a billionaire in that sector without the assistance of your father. So some people are saying that it's just a farce. He's more like an Isaac, you know, in the story of Abraham. Is it really true that does he need to retire? Does he need to resign as a sign of respect or honor, knowing with the fact that his son is indicted in this or not? What's your take about that?
Thank you very much.
Because in some countries, even if they're closely related to these issues, before they're indicted, they resign. So what's the case in our country, Nigeria?
Thank you very much. It's a very good question. You see, the son is an adult. It's a human being created by God on his own. The father, though he came through the father is also a different human being. And they die separately on different days, or as the case may be. Now, the point I'm bringing is that constitutionally, if it is found that the son actually is guilty, he will be prosecuted and he will face his own problem. The father is a different person entirely. Take, for example, I can give you my own personal example. I will always tell my children, please, on no account will you misbehave or do one thing or the other. My son works with NS and Young as a chartered accountant. I said, look, don't be carried away with whatever is the money. Just stick to my advice. That's all. Because you are going to throw your own problem. So the father must have been advising, forget that he must, the father must have
Guided him.
guided the
Exactly,
son
because
to
that's
get to
about-
that billions of naira. It's normal. People go through connections.
It's
always
normal in this part.
It's normal. Yes, it's normal.
Okay.
It's normal in this part of the
In
world.
this
you know.
part.
So, by so doing, the sin of the father, also of the son, should not be visited on the father.
Father.
You get that point.
That's your position.
That is my position.
Is that your position, Mr. Kingsley?
I mean,
So sorry, just one more thing.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
Except if the company that they
Yes.
used, it is traced to Abuja Corporate Affairs Commission, and it is discovered that the father.
He's a shareholder.
That's
or
it.
part of-
Then both of them should be prosecuted.
Is that your position, sir?
I think there's a lot of hypocrisy in Nigeria.
Okay.
I mean, a man gets appointed to public office or elected, the whole family rejoices. He does Thanksgiving. Friends rejoice. Community rejoice. What are they rejoicing for? It's a way of doing business in Nigeria. The practice is, for purposes of trust, you use your children as your tool for engaging in business. For people
And
like
relatives, your family.
yes, for people like Bamanga, even if he says there's a distinction between him and his son, in reality, he's sleeping there and he's burning, because it's a blow on a system that has been in existence for a very long time, where siblings in China, they call them priestlings. They are the route through which people engage in business with. So I would say it's a normal practice. I mean, if he chooses to resign or quit based on his son's indictment and prosecution, he would be bringing very high standards into public office. But I doubt if he will.
So what you're saying is it's not wrong to say that Ahmadu Ali and Alhaji Bamanga took or benefited from the subsidy lagas because of the father's position in the ruling party. That's what you're saying?
Not that it's not wrong. I'm telling you, this is the norm.
This is a norm.
Yes,
Okay.
it's the norm. But on a strict legal basis, you cannot, unless there's a direct link between the father and the son in the engagement of the subsidy. But Ali, for instance, was the former chairman of the Petroleum Product Prices Regulatory Authority. There is no way his son could have gotten that permit to import petroleum product without his father's intervention. So all this talk about that they are not aware, of course they are aware. Aris Ekola's son, they are all aware. That's how things work in Nigeria. But again, it is evidence of a broken system. Because today, no public officer, even if he is the president, can send to the managing director of MTN and say, I want my son to supply and be given exclusivity to supply diesel to all the fuel sites in Nigeria, where they have GSM masts. Why? Because the system has changed. We have to recognize that what we are experiencing today is evidence of the need to transition. And if we don't pass through that door when that window of opportunity opens, eventually it will shut. And we will end up with a system that is going to be more crippling, because the addiction, I call it addiction to cheap petrol. No, not just that.
Petrol.
Yes, the addiction to petrol is behind this. We've gotten hooked into that system. I mean, you go to places like Armenia, 78% of cars in Armenia are driven by natural gas. You go to Britain, only people who are very rich use petrol to fuel their car. Everybody uses diesel, because diesel is a harder fuel and it takes more to burn. It may not be as efficient as petrol, but you get more mileage from diesel than you get from petrol. I mean, there are so many things that we could do, but because we're hooked to petrol, people are taking advantage of the system and almost breaking the system. And what we don't want is what has happened in the banking sector, where a lot of people are not even paying attention to that the federal government had to guarantee AMCON for the 3 trillion that was pumped in to rescue these banks. At some point in time, those monies will be due. Somebody has to pay for them. Are we going to wait until people completely drain the hard resources that we have because we say we want to continue to pay for petrol, or do we realize that this is the opportunity that is God-given for us to, to improve on,
or do
what
we wait
have?
for the price of oil to drop from 72, which is the tally for our budget, until we know that we need to diversify? Okay, so let's look at this. Many Nigerians have said that it's not a coincidence that many of these suspects are big donors to the ruling party. They say that the PDP and its bigwigs are right at the center of the scam, and it is too late for the party and the bigwigs to distance themselves from it. Do you think the party politics card will play against the case, considering this setup?
Well, to some extent, one cannot really say yes or no, because party sentiment is always there. Definitely. They will get back to their, it's a kind of family caucus, get back and do whatever nasty, messy thing they want to do, and to kill all whatever, so that there will be no headway. I think party sentiment will surely come in.
Are we denied of this change in this corruption system because of lack of information to the populace? Because we've seen how information so far has driven, the fight of corruption to a certain point. Before, we just used to know that there is corruption somewhere in the air. But right now, at least we can see some faces, we can see some proofs of where this corruption emanates from. Do you think information has a huge role to play, especially when provided to Nigerians in the fight of corruption?
Information, that was why the Information Act, the journalists were crying after it. And to God be the glory, it was eventually passed and signed. And this is the backing of the journalists. So without this information, I think by now we would have been in the dark. So with this Freedom of Information Act 2011, it has played a very major role. And with it, cases which I cannot remember one or two, but a lot of cases based on information, they are being won. So what the journalists who are, should do is to go further in getting more information, correct information, that at any point of time, if they're investigated upon, it will be found nothing but the truth. So with such information, it goes a long way. The courts are the judiciary is very good. When you come with your evidence, they give you the right judgment. There might be
come with your evidence.
Yes, which are the right information, credible evidence. So information is very vital. And with the Information Act that have been passed, it helped in a very long way to ensure that people are aware of what is happening.
Okay, don't you think this is supposed to be a plus, talking about the party politics? Don't you think it's supposed to be a plus to the opposition party or parties? Because now they have seen that with the availability of information to fight corruption, they should be able to pull these big wigs in the PDP, the opposition party. Don't you think they should dwell on that?
Beyond the issue of information, I think the policy change just touched Nigerians in the wrong place. Nigerians are a very funny set of people, in the sense that they only react when you take what immediately affects them. That ability to rise up based on principle and to take action on behalf of others when you don't stand to benefit immediately is not
there.
Sadly a Nigerian trait. The issue was that the increase in petroleum products took money from the pockets of Nigerians, and that was what created the immense anger and the response that others tried to take advantage of. And the fuel subsidy fraud is not the only fraud that is going on right now. The pension fraud is there. Nobody is talking about turning the world upside down. I mean, you open the papers on a daily basis. I mean, it's fraud about ghost workers, about I mean, today in one of the states, or for instance, 10 directors or some in the pensions office, they just uncovered some 2.something billion naira fraud. In the local government system, where governors have hijacked the local government system, there's fraud. But people are not losing sleep. They say, you know, that is other people's money. The increase in petroleum product took money from the pockets of Nigerians, and that was why you had that
reaction,
immediate reaction. Yes.
Now, it's established that Nigeria's largely poor citizens are being made to subsidize a few corrupt people. They allegedly collected billions of naira for the fuel that they did not import and all of that. What do you think? And right now, we're currently paying 97 naira per litre, which is in line with what you said. Can you just quickly tell us, what do you think should be the way out of this situation currently undermining the nation's integrity, especially as the world is
in terms of what kind of policy change to address the challenges? I'm fully for deregulation.
Deregulation.
I'm fully for deregulation.
Full deregulation.
Yes, as we've seen in the telecommunication sector.
And that's going to be as costly as if 150.
Well, the immediate, I think if it is properly packaged. For instance, there's a refinery in River State belonging to a local company called Niger Delta. I've forgotten the full name, but it's run by...
it's a privately owned
company. By a guy called Dr. Lai Fatona. And that company is presently producing diesel for its own consumption, because it has an oil acreage, a marginal field that it bought from one of the oil majors. And it's producing about 1,000 barrels of crude oil a day. So what they did was to set up a mini refinery attached to their production site, from where they are getting diesel they are using to power their operations. And in a newspaper interview, he said he was going to be able to supply diesel if he was allowed to sell. I'm not talking about quantity now, but excess capacity at about 30 to 50 naira less than public price. That gives you an indication of what will ultimately happen when you allow for proper deregulation to come into that sector. It would result in the setup of refineries, either strictly for diesel or for petrol, and you can have refineries that produce, process 10,000 barrels of crude. You have refineries that process 400,000 barrels. A one-size-fits-all approach will not happen. You would have different types of companies, just as you have Glo, you have MTN, you have Etisalat, all with their different strategies, different pricing models. But what that allows, what that allows is for creating of a new economy out of what was once perceived to be a dead sector, where people were only stealing from the Nigerian government. And until we can bite the bullet and take such strong decisions, we will continue to unfortunately just beat around the bush and celebrate these fraudsters.
Thank you so much. All right, please, in one sentence, can you tell us what is our way forward? Will Nigerians expect something from all this probe, or we should focus our mind on a change in the system and leave the fraudsters to go about their business? What's your take, sir?
No, we should continue the prosecution. We should not leave the fraudsters. They have nicked Nigerians to the extent that they need to pay dearly for the crime they have committed. They should be prosecuted.
And what about the system? What do you think is the way forward to prevent this from eating up, into our system in Nigeria?
To prevent it, like my colleague already said, that issue of deregulation is very, very important. It will go a long way in preventing it, so that people do not go and collect round tripping, as they call it, and without doing anything. So if there's deregulation, there's competition in the agricultural rights, whatever, and like as Riley said, the diesel man, and they give license, I mean, the economy will definitely grow from where we are now
to a better state.
Thank you
so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Jonathan. You're watching The Agenda. My name is Philip Ihaza. You've heard them. They've talked about, we've been talking about the trial of Nigeria's fuel subsidy crimes. Is it a farce or a reality? And what I could get from this, I don't know about you, but is that yes, the fraudsters are there, the corruption is there, and it's actually even up to rot in the system. But then how can we address these issues, or else they continue to drain the economy, talking about oil. I think, as they have said, it's the regulation, because we do not have the case of subsidizing whatever importation of fuel, because that's what is going to help in this country. I've been talking to Mr. Jonathan Okiogbero. He's a legal practitioner, national legal advisor, National Conscience Party NCP, and public policy analyst. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much.
I've also been talking to Mr. Kingsley Omose. He's a legal practitioner and principal partner, Reliance Solicitors, social expert, and public policy analyst. What have you to say? How can we arrest these issues of crime in our sectors, in our oil sector especially? Well, that's up to you. You can always send your comments to agenda@loveworldplusnews.net. That's how we can get your reaction, your contributions, and your comments, and then we can do so much with that. We need your feedback to know how we're faring. My name is Philip Ihaza, and I hope we've done so well on the show so far, but then we'll be back same time next week for another crucial matter in setting the agenda right and redefining patriotism. Until then, thanks for joining us. Same time next week. Bye-bye.
So it's not the constitution that is a problem per se, but those that are supposed to interpret it and then administer it.
See, what we're saying is that people should be passionate about their job. We should have people that love this country. People say, you know what, we don't want deregulation of petroleum products. We want the subsidy to continue. We want our refineries to be prepared. But you go talk to somebody who runs or works in one of these refineries, they will tell you why those refineries can never work.
There is a present and real danger for the corporate existence of Nigeria. Generally, this government is considered as weak.
It should not be so. If we remain like that, then we will remain in socio-economic and political thraldom.
So when you talk about passion, the people ruling us, they are not passionate.
Well, let's take
the House of Rep is not passionate. The senators are not passionate. That's why they are discussing without doing anything. Which sacrifice are they going to offer?
In Nigeria, governance is not about servanthood. Governance in Nigeria is about what can I get.